Oh, hey, you caught me off guard. I was just doing some late night game development and tightening up the graphics there. So, I guess while you're here, we can have a bit of a talk. Today, I wanted to share with you my approach to horror, how Silver Falls approaches horror, and why it's so different from other games in the horror series. So, generally, when I consider the concepts for approaching horror and the direction that I come from when writing and conceiving horror, I try to think of what is really the essence of a reaction to a horror piece of media that we consume. And I think at its most basic level, a sense of horror is something that is wrong, something that is not right. And it's important that when you are creating media in a particular genre, especially when you are surrounded by contemporaries which influence not just their other contemporaries, but the people who consume the media, they experience it, and they develop an expectation for media in a particular genre. And when it comes to horror games, we have very specific expectations because we have a lot of experience with horror media and horror games. And unfortunately, that leads to a lot of media in that genre becoming homogenized because when people create that, they tend to look at their contemporaries, they look at the entries in the industry that set an example. Say, for example, Silent Hill. We see so many games that are just copying what Silent Hill did and just basically recycling and reusing the exact same storytelling elements, the exact same visual components and audio components at a very superficial level because when people try to create for a genre, sometimes they tend to get a little bit trapped in, well, this is what the genre looks like, so I should make something that looks like that. And that is the exact opposite approach that I take when Silver Falls. I am not, and probably never will ever create anything to fit into a genre. I'm never going to try to create something that just fits in. And from that respect, I don't expect that the Silver Falls series will ever be mainstream because, in general, your product and your media that create, they tend to do best when people can very quickly and easily understand what that thing is without much effort. They can quickly identify and say, oh, okay, it's like this. It's like a Resident Evil. It's like a Silent Hill. That's great, okay. But Silver Falls is not that. So my approach when creating my concepts, especially since not every Silver Falls game is as horror focused as as they can be, is I tend to focus on what's wrong. When you see that something is wrong, when you see that something is not right, you have that reaction, and that is the reaction you have when responding to horror games and horror media, horror visual novels and manga. So, specifically with Three Down Stars, I knew that I was taking a significant gamble. It was a huge risk creating that game the way it is. And I knew that's what it was going to be, and I knew that it was probably going to be a bad idea because it was my first commercial title. It was on a platform which did not have many horror games. And it was a platform for which I wanted to see more horror games, and that's why I created Silver Falls exclusively for the Nintendo 3DS. And so I knew that I didn't want to just copy what my contemporaries had done before. I didn't want to just superficially, replicate the visual and audio components. I wanted to create something different and interesting, not just for my sake to give me a chance to say something that I would like to say, but because we've already experienced those other franchises, and if we want to experience those things, we can go and enjoy those franchises. Why would I waste my time and everyone else's time by just copying something? And so with Silver Falls, I knew that I wanted to create something that wasn't loud and bombastic and thrilling and exciting and horrifying just from watching someone play it on YouTube. And that influenced the entire series moving forward, because I knew that I was, in a sense, sticking it to the man and saying I'm not going to be part of the algorithm, and I'm not going to, I suppose, pander to what the algorithm wants, which is this very loud, bombastic kind of explosive content that people can put on their live stream and then get tons of views. I wanted something that was more somber, more quiet, that people would enjoy and experience on their own personal terms, and when they understand the horror elements of each individual title in their own unique way, it happens in a way that feels quiet and personal. And I think that in life, I think the most horrifying things, the most terrifying and scary things, are not things that are loud and bombastic. I think the most horrifying things in our lives are quiet realizations, things that come to us when we are alone during late hours, at night. And that was the sort of approach that I wanted to take with Silver Falls. And I knew that it was a risk. And I knew that a lot of people would probably drop playing the games, playing 3 or 4 hours and seeing that it wasn't like Silent Hill, and then they would stop playing it. And I have heard from people that that was the case for them. And I knew that going in, that was going to happen. And that's unfortunate. But the Silver Falls games will never be designed for short attention spans. They're not meant to just, boom, have a look at this horrifying thing, it's scary, and then hook people in. They're something that you enjoy on your own time. And I always envisioned this as a series that people would probably stay up pretty late playing, when it's quiet, when it's dark outside, when the only light in their room is probably coming from, the screen which has the game on it. And that allows people to connect in a very personal way to the Silver Falls stories and characters. And that is what I knew, not immediately, as I was trying to think of something interesting that we didn't really have in the industry. And I would say after about 8 to 10 months into planning, I knew, okay, this is my approach. This is what I want to do. This is something quiet and understated and personal. I don't want to make any spoilers for 3 Down Stars, as I know there are people out there who still have not played it, and I now am hoping to bring that 3 Down Stars HD remaster to the Switch in late 2024. I'm hoping that will be possible given my current work schedule with the other titles. So if the titles that I am launching in the near future do very well, if they sell well, if they pick up traction and people are talking about it online, I'll be able to get work done on the 3 Down Stars HD remaster, and I think at that point I will be able to share the full vision that I had for the concept of 3 Down Stars. So to discuss the game without getting into any spoilers, is I knew that I had to make it feel different. I knew that everyone's going to compare this to Silent Hill and Resident Evil, and there's no getting around that. You have to understand that when you create something, when you create media, it will be compared to what has come before and what the contemporaries are. And I knew that it needed to be different. And that isn't the most important thing to focus on, because if you only focus on being different, you're not going to end up with a very good product. You're going to end up with something that didn't try to be good. You just set out to create something different. And I knew with Silver Falls, I wanted to give something people that they can enjoy. But I knew that this was a series that was it was going to be designed for people who have patience, who explore on their own and take their time. And I understood totally and completely, not everyone's going to like this. People are really going to hate this because these Silver Falls games do not hold your hand. They don't just point things out. There's never a text on the top that says shoot the padlock. And there's no, there's no massive, giant, horrifying, a nemesis that hunts you down. So I knew I'm not going to have access to any gimmicks, because that's not what I want to create. And I knew that I had to create something that helped people understand this is for people who just want to enjoy a game at their own pace, and for people with patience, for people who explore on their own, they'll be rewarded. And so with 3 Down Stars, I wanted to establish the normalcy. This is what the normal world feels like. I needed a baseline level of reality. And that's why when you start playing through 3 Down Stars, there's no big, horrifying, scary monsters. It's just animals. And so you're going through it and you're just, oh, yeah, there's a level of safety that I wanted to establish early on. And it took an immense amount of discipline from me, especially creating my first commercial title, to have the discipline to not just go balls out and put a bunch of horrifying, scary monsters and put massive weapons. I thought it would be way more interesting if I gave people a different experience entirely and gave them something and do something that a game I don't think had ever really done in the horror genre. And so if you don't want any spoilers, maybe now's a good time to sort of mute the video a little bit. I'll wave when you can unmute it so we can discuss it. So if you don't want any spoilers, mute it now. So it feels like the majority of 3 Down Stars, there are no monsters. There's just normal animals. But there are hints to something that is wrong with the town. And when it suddenly gets to a point where, the entirety of the game has just taken place in this huge open environment, nothing is really that scary. And 3 Down Stars was not meant to feel scary. It was just meant to feel lonely. And so suddenly it reaches a point where you are suddenly thrust into an extremely claustrophobic environment where suddenly you're not out in broad daylight. You are suddenly in a very dark, very tight space. And you hear a sound at the other end of the tunnel. And the game had already spent like 7 hours conditioning you. Hey, you're safe, man. It's no big deal. It's just going to be an animal. And when you get attacked by something that isn't an animal, it's shocking because you understand this isn't right. This is something's wrong. And as you get through the game and you progress to Holt's section in the steel mill, I thought for the people that were patient, that just pushed through the game and they dealt with it feels kind of normal, this is their reward. This is the horror game that you really wanted. And I just had so much sense of relief when I just got a flood of messages from people all over the world all of a sudden saying, dude, I just got to the steel mill part and I had to put the 3DS down. Holy crap, why did you do that? And it was so exciting that I was able to bring an experience like that because as a huge fan of horror games, I hadn't experienced anything like it. Anyway, I'm going to wave, okay? It's time to, you can unmute the video. Unmute the video. You can unmute it now. Okay, so that was my approach to horror. And it was, because it was the first game in the series, I had to set a baseline level of reality. So this is what normal feels like. Because I knew that if I started my horror series at a level that was too high, then the only place to go forward from there was to escalate. And when you end up escalating, you end up with games like Resident Evil 6, where it's over-escalated, and your audience is now exhausted, and they're too tired, and you have taken it too far. And I knew that Silver Falls needed to be a series where variation was the key, instead of escalation. And we're now at a point where I think there's 8 or 9 Silver Falls titles out right now, and they all offer something interesting and unique. I've not heard from anyone that has said anything like, hey, I'm kind of getting tired of these games. I only ever hear from people, and I don't go and look at reviews and what people are saying about the games online. It's only ever people that send me messages is all I know. Or if people see a review, they'll send it to me. People have sent me negative reviews. People have sent me negative forum posts and whatnot. And hey, man, that's the name of the game. That's how the game works. You gotta roll with the punches. That's how it is. But all from my understanding is that people just want more Silver Falls because they know that the next Silver Falls game, they don't know what it's going to be, and that is fun. And what am I doing if I'm not creating something fun? So that's my approach to horror, is you set a baseline standard of what what is normal, and then you very slowly build up to breaking that and showing someone something that let them see it. Don't just shove something in someone's face, let them see it. Let them see and understand this isn't normal, this isn't right. And you have to give people time to process that, to comprehend, well, it could be this or it could be this, and you have to just slowly answer their questions by saying, no, you're wrong, it's not that, it's not that, until the audience, the player, becomes exhausted from trying to figure out what it is, and they decide on their own, oh, this is not right at all, this isn't how it's supposed to be. And I think that is the truest, purest horror reaction. So anyway, I thought it'd be interesting to discuss that with you guys. I hope that was interesting. I got to get back to work on making my video games. This is how it looks. It's a lot of typing. It's a lot of this, and then you gotta tighten up the graphics. You tighten up the graphics by doing this, and that's how you tighten up the graphics. So anyway, I hope this has been interesting for you. Take care of yourselves, and hey, we'll see you in Silver Falls.